Good morning. Please stand as you're willing and able and join us in our first hymn of the morning, Circle Round for Freedom.
Good morning. Thank you. I know it's kind of a rough morning too, isn't it? I don't know why my phone is making a noise. I turned it on silence. I apologize. Maybe that was somebody else's phone. No, mine's on vibrate. Somebody else's. Sorry. Maybe my watch is vibrating. It's my watch. Oh. Yeah, so I know it's kind of a rough morning too. It's been a rough week, obviously, given the results of the election. And I think I'm going to forego my usual opening to our services with our rather ritualistic recitation of our church mission statement. But as important as that is, I also recognize that this is an unusual Sunday following what has been a rather traumatic shift in the leadership of our country. And obviously, as religious liberals and progressives, we are disturbed and troubled and seeking solace. So I'll do my best to help us frame things in a way that puts us in some kind of perspective we can move forward with. It's obviously not a pleasant future ahead, but it is one that we can still be ourselves and adjust to as we need to and as the world needs us to. And that beautiful song about circling round, I think, is the fundamental way in which we're going to do that, by working with those, being with those, who are like-minded and can share our concerns, share our burdens, and share the work that is before us in continuing to promote the values and principles that we believe are necessary to make the world truly a humane and peaceful place. So I'll have more to say about this during my sermon, but I wanted to begin by acknowledging what's gone on and expressing my compassion for you and for all of us as we once again find ourselves needing to endure very difficult circumstances. And we shall do so together. So thanks all of you for being here. Thanks to all of those who are live streaming with us as well this morning. We're glad to have all of you. And we are up to the task that is before us. I do have some announcements that I would like to make before we move on with our service. One, this just in from Julie Jose regarding our partner church program. We have a partner church, the Unitarian Church of Felșaracos, formerly Romania. I think our friends would prefer, what would they say, Transylvania or Hungary? Yeah. But the world recognizes it as Romania, unfortunately for them. But that's the part of the world anyway that it is in, and we've been partners with them. Help me out, Julie, for how many years now? Was it over 30 years now? Yeah. And part of what we do is support the higher education of some of their youth. And this fall there are going to be 2 new students who will be needing sponsors. And that amounts to sponsors who are able to contribute $300 a year per student. And they're always very grateful, and we get to hear from them, and we get to hear about their progress. And it's a very nice way for a relatively meager amount, at least from our perspective as Americans, to help somebody get an education. So if you would like to volunteer, be a sponsor, or to learn more, you can look for Julie's contact in our newsletter, which you'll find online, this week's Sun, as we call it. And Julie, you can wave your hand, and so if you're interested in talking with her after the service even, she'll be here today. Thank you, Julie. Also on November 24th, we will be having our Thanksgiving community potluck here at the church, and we will provide the turkey, which is not me. If you would bring a dish of some sort to share, we would love to have you. That'll be happening after our second service around 12:30 or so on the 24th. So please consider attending that. And I think today is also the last day of our annual auction to bid on items. So you have until about 4 o'clock to either go online and do that, or there's a list of them in the back of the church there if you want to find out what are some of the fun things and activities that you might be able to bid on to help with this year's fundraiser. Okay, enough for now. Let's take a couple of moments. Now that you're all seated and calm, why don't you get up and greet one another?
work with him. reality check. Yes, they are.
All right, there'll be more opportunity to visit one another, as always, after our service during social hour. And for those who might be visiting with us, there's coffee and tea behind the wall there and the table, so help yourself to that. But let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, which is the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
The first thing I did early Wednesday after Donald Trump won the presidential election was to pull a novel by Sinclair Lewis from my bookshelves. It Can't Happen Here, published in October 1935 in the midst of the Great Depression and the rise of Hitler, warned Americans about the rise of fascism in our country. The book's title came from the typical American reaction concerning the possibility of a dictatorship in this country. It can't happen here, right? At the time, the New Yorker called this cautionary book one of the most important ever written in America. 89 years later, with the election of a convicted felon and wannabe autocrat to our nation's highest office, we're again asking whether fascism not only can, but will arise here. Lisa Lehrer, a New York Times columnist, wrote this week about Trump's specific warnings. He'd use military force against his political enemies. He'd fire thousands of career public servants. He'd use the military to deport millions of immigrants. He'd terminate the Constitution. He'd crush the dependence of the Department of Justice, push public health conspiracies, and abandon America's allies abroad. He'd turn the government into a tool of his own grievances, punish his critics, and richly reward his supporters. He would be a dictator, if only on day one. Trump's sweeping election victory, Lerner warned, was a conquering of the nation not by force, but with a permission slip. Now, America stands on the precipice of an authoritarian style of governance never before seen in its 248-year history. Before Inauguration Day, I urge you to read or reread Yale historian Timothy Snyder's slim primer on tyranny, a to-do list for resisting totalitarianism that was written during Trump's first term. Its most important message as we move towards oligarchy: do not obey in advance. Most of the power of authoritarianism is freely given, Snyder writes. In times like these, individuals think ahead about what a more repressive government will want, and then offer themselves without being asked. A citizen who adapts in this way is teaching power what it can do.
Please stand as you are willing and able and join us in singing In Dark of Night.
Dark of winter.
Dark of Winter.
55. Yeah, this is.
Is my
Thanks to Luba Johnson and Jean Larson and Riche Thomas for helping to lead our music this morning, and Jackie Sandberg, who is a guest pianist this week, and we'll be seeing a lot more of them in the coming weeks as well. So thank you all and welcome. We are now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. And we will begin with a candle on behalf of the people of Ukraine and that region of the world that are suffering from the violence and war that's going on there, as well as, I'm confident, some very new worries after the results of this week. A candle on behalf of the people of Israel and our Palestinian neighbors across the waters who are suffering from the horrific violence there, as well as the folks in Iran and Lebanon and other places around that region of the world. And we will kindle a candle on behalf of our fellow Americans, as well as our fellow citizens around the world who keep up with our politics for good reason, who are also concerned about the outcome of this week's election. Let's take a moment of silence as usual on behalf of others that you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. In restless dreams I walked alone, narrow streets of cobblestone, neath the halo of a street lamp. I turned my collar to the cold and damp, when my eyes were stabbed by a flash of a neon light that split the night and touched the sound of silence. And in the naked light I saw 10,000 people, maybe more. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening, people writing songs that voices never share, and no one dared disturb the sound of silence. Fools say you do not know. Silence like a cancer grows. Hear my words that I might teach you. Take my but my words like silent raindrops fell and echoed in the wells of silence. And the people bowed and prayed for a neon god they made. And the sign flashed out its warning to the words that it was forming. And the sign said the words of the prophets are written on the subway walls and tenement halls, and whispered in the sounds of silence.
Shay Mora, thank you so much, and obviously a very fitting song to have chosen for today. We so appreciate it. It is now time for our story for all ages, so if anybody who would like to come forward and come closer, you're welcome to do so. As usual, I have a friend with me to help out, so bear with me. Let's see who has showed up today. Well, look who it is. If it's not our old friend, Not from Noth. Again, you were just here last week. Yes, it's not. Well, so last week, you let us know that you were actually running for president of Noth against your opponent, Nor from Noth. Is he also here again today? No, he's not. No, he's Nor. You're not. Not what? You're not Nor. I'm not Nor. I'm not. I don't think. I don't know what you even mean to say here. If you're not Nor or you're just not. But it doesn't really matter because both are true in your case. Yeah. So, correct. I am not Nor. Nor is not Nor. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. So this is getting confusing. Last week, to change the subject, you mentioned that you were going to be running for president of Noth, and I hope that your election went a little bit better than ours did this week. Did you win? Are you the president of Noth? No, I'm not. So let's not go there again. I'm sorry that you were defeated. I guess this means that Nor is the new president of your planet. Is that right? No, I am not. Nor is Nor. Nor is Nor. Okay, well, if you're not, nor is Nor, then who is? We were both defeated by a third-party candidate. Ah, well, you must be very disappointed. Yes, worst of all is losing to a sandwich. A sandwich? Well, I got to say, I've heard candidates call each other a lot of names over the years, but I've never heard them call themselves a sandwich. That doesn't sound like much of an insult. It is not an insult. It is true. Our new president is a sandwich who is entirely unfit for office. A sandwich. A ham and cheese sandwich, to be exact. What? You're a ham and cheese sandwich. That's what I said. Well, I don't even know what to say. I'd say you're not fit to be a ham and cheese sandwich. Well, why do you say that, Not? Because he's full of baloney. All right. There's no need for the name calling. The election is over. I don't mind. Some of my best friends are baloney sandwiches. I'm sure of it. Anyway, I'm glad that you're not easily offended, Mr. President, because I have to ask, how on earth, how on Noth does a sandwich get elected president of such an advanced civilization? Well, it was either that or a can of sardines. And who wants a can of sardines for a president? Well, I don't even know who would want a sardine or a ham and cheese sandwich for president now that you mention it. Well, I'm a very popular sandwich on North. It is everyone's favorite sandwich. I'm getting hungry just looking at it. Okay. Look, please don't eat your new president. My point really is why would anyone elect you, a sandwich, when they could have actually elected an intelligent life form like not here, or maybe even nor? How did a sandwich get elected when there were far better choices? No offense, sandwich. None taken. All right, now, are you and your people going to be okay being governed by a ham and cheese sandwich? Yes, we look elsewhere in the universe and realize it could be worse. Worse. What could be worse than having a sandwich for a president? At least our president isn't a... All right. Enough of that. Watch the language. You know, as disturbing as the thought of having a ham sandwich for president is, I'm somehow comforted by your visit here today. How's that? At least I know we're not all alone in the universe. Thank you.
As we prepare for meditation at the end of this stressful week, I invite you not to get comfortable, but to breathe deeply and consider these excerpts from a poem that Lawrence Ferlinghetti wrote in 2007, written during the presidency of George W. Bush. The poem is titled "Pity the Nation." Pity the nation whose people are sheep and whose shepherds mislead them. Pity the nation whose leaders are liars, whose sages are silenced, and whose bigots haunt the airwaves. Pity the nation, oh, pity the people who allow their rights to erode and their freedoms to be washed away. My country, tears of thee, sweet land of liberty.
You got a fast car, I want a ticket to anywhere. Maybe we'll make a deal. Maybe together we can get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from zero, got nothing to lose. Maybe we'll make something. Me, myself, I got nothing to prove. fast car. I got a plan to get us out of here. I've been working at the convenience store and managed to save just a little bit of money. Won't have to drive too far. Cross the border and into the city. You and I will both get jobs. Finally see what it means to be living. Yeah. See, my old man, he's got a problem. Lived with the bottle, that's the way it is. Said his body's too old for working. His body's too young to look like this. My mama went off and left him, wanted more than life than he could give. Somebody's got to take care of him. I quit school, that's what I did. You got a fast car. Is it fast enough so we can fly away? Still gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or live and die this way. So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast I felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us. Your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, could be someone, could be someone. You got a fast car. We go cruising, entertain ourselves. Still ain't got a job. Work at the market as a checkout girl. I know things will get better. You'll find work and I'll get promoted. We'll move out of the shelter, buy a bigger house, live in the suburbs. So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast I felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us. Your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, could be someone, could be someone. You got a fast car. I got a job that pays all our bills. Stay out drinking late at the bar. See more of your friends than you do your kids. I always hoped for better. Maybe together you and me will find that I got no plans, I ain't going nowhere. Take your fast car, keep on driving. So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast I felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us. Your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, could be someone, could be someone. You got a fast car. Is it fast enough so we could fly away? Still gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or live and die this way. Leave tonight or live and die this way.
Thank you so much. Here we go. For those who voted against him, Donald Trump's re-election to the White House this week, is just as disturbing as was his election 8 years ago. Although for me, at least, it doesn't feel nearly as shocking. Back then, we were all in a state of disbelief, including perhaps Donald Trump himself. How could such an obviously unsavory, inexperienced, and flawed character become president of the United States? I personally know of people who had heart attacks, strokes, and mental breakdowns within days of his first election. But equally as shocking, perhaps even more so, was that so many of our fellow Americans voted for such a despicable character. What does it say about our democracy? What does it say about our neighbors? What does his election say about our country? The Sunday following his first election, we had a standing room only crowd of attendees in our church seeking some solace, some sense, some direction, some means of comprehending what a political outcome like that could have meant to our country. But today, after a decade of learning to cope with the reality and constant presence of a figure who has continued to command most of our nation's attention, it is hard to find ourselves shocked about anything about him, including his re-election. We may now feel just as confused, saddened, angry, anxious as we did at his first election, but we are not nearly as shocked, nor are we nearly as naive. And this is a good thing, this feeling that nothing can surprise us anymore, and now we've seen it all. Because despite our hopes and expectations, most of us went into the recent election knowing that Donald Trump had a good chance of winning. And when he did, with an impressive lead and without question. Whatever else we conclude, we have to admit that our democracy, such as it is, worked. Even if we are now wondering if democracy itself works. 2,500 years ago, when the Greeks were first establishing democracies, Plato argued that it was the worst possible kind of government because it would inevitably lead to unfit populist leaders empowered by a tyranny of the masses. Perhaps all that we have endured these past 10 years has brought us to the place of introspection today, ready for a reality check, wondering if our form of democracy really is better than all the rest, as Winston Churchill famously said. Questioning our moral absolutes is always a good idea, whether it or not it leads us to change or improve upon them. But more importantly is the grit and the stamina that we have gained this past decade, having had to cope with Trump's chronic presence in our lives. We now know that lamenting the loss of what could have been or what should have been only makes matters worse. And we know that we have the strength to endure whatever we must because we already have. And we can still be at our best under any circumstances. Today, as we begin our new but sadly familiar circumstance, there are two important questions before us. How could this have really happened again? And what do we do now? But before I address these, let me first go back to what many of us were feeling so intensely, or I should say are feeling so intensely right now. Those feelings of confusion and sadness and anger and fear or anxiety, whether or not we were shocked. And I wish that I could calm these feelings for you like a mother who holds a child close, reassuringly saying, "It's okay. It's all going to be okay." But we're not children. And as history has well taught us, things don't always turn out okay. Just as the people of Ukraine and Gaza, whose neighborhoods and homes are being obliterated, even as scores of their innocent loved ones are being killed simply for being in somebody's way, they know things are not always going to be okay. There are events in our world that at best will be remembered by historians for the unabated evils that they are, while nothing is done to alleviate them in the present. So I cannot tell you that it will all be okay. But I can tell you that the intensity of what we're feeling now will decrease over time, and no matter what happens next, we will come through it together. We may not survive unscathed or without suffering and loss, but we shall overcome whatever we must, precisely because we must. Before going further, I should also admit that the tone of my words so far presume that the election of Donald Trump is a terrible result, that he is a bad person who is unfit for any office, let alone the highest office in the land, and that there is something deeply flawed with the thinking and morality of those millions of Americans who voted for him. I've had some suggest that I ought to temper what I have to say about his supporters, but I will only say what I believe is true, and to leave the fair and balanced shtick to Fox News. This does not mean that I'm angry with his voters, nor that I consider them my enemies. On the contrary, many of them are my neighbors, my friends, and even my family members. I love them, and as much as I might disagree with them, I defend their right to vote for whomever they want. But acknowledging this does not prevent me from understanding that there is something fundamentally wrong with their thinking and ethics. Even so, I have wondered and continue to wonder if there's something wrong with my own thinking and ethics, and by extension with that of all those Democrats who voted against Trump. Is it possible that our own biases, fears, and hopes have gotten the best of us? Are we only able to see the worst in Trump and not the good that so many others seem to recognize? Are we being hyperbolic and unfair of his opponents like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris? To some extent, this must be true. We are human beings and we are no different than anyone else, which by my estimation means our thinking and beliefs are driven by our emotions far more than not. So let's not deceive ourselves into believing that we can't deceive ourselves. But to be able to ask ourselves this very question, prove can. And I suspect just about everyone here has wondered, am I the one who's crazy? Have you wondered that? Ask that question is enough to suggest that you are not. We also have empirical facts to reassure us that we aren't. Maybe some, but not all, of the prosecutorial actions against Trump these past few years have been politically motivated attempts to keep him from running again. But given his unsubstantiated claims about election fraud, higher crime rates, that Democrats are aborting children after they're born, that Kamala Harris got the answers before the debate, and that Haitian immigrants are eating our pets. We have real evidence on our side. And we don't need to give Trump or his supporters the benefit of the doubt in the name of false fairness and alternative facts. The most recent issue of The Economist, for example, contains a cover story about America's economy entitled "The Envy of the World." That's a term that Joe Biden was criticized for using. It says that since the start of 2020, just before the COVID-19 pandemic, America's real growth has been 10%, 3 times the average for the rest of the G7 countries. Among the G20 group, which includes large emerging markets, America is the only one whose output and employment are above pre-pandemic expectations, according to the International Monetary Fund. The data also shows that crime is significantly down, as are the crossings at the southern border, despite Trump's politically motivated thwarting of a bipartisan bill to address the problems there. And according to its Republican mayor, Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, are not overrunning the city, are welcome and important contributors, and have not eaten a single pet. On the other hand, Trump has been routinely unable to show any understanding of important political matters, let alone offer details about his plans to improve matters. Instead of answering the questions he's asked, he attacks the character of his interviewers. That's a stupid question. You're a bad person. His speech is often incoherent and inconsistent, not to mention extreme, obscene, and untruthful. He says things that are profoundly racist, sexist, and misogynistic, as we saw on January 6th, sometimes even incendiary, not to mention his personal history of bankruptcies, lawsuits for bad business dealings, and alleged criminal activities. So there are plenty of good reasons to rest assured that Donald Trump is unfit for office and should not be in the White House no matter how many people have voted for him. Being fair and introspective does not mean that we should allow ourselves to be gaslighted by others, and certainly not by ourselves. We are not crazy. In addition to all that we are now worried about, less than 2 months ago, Trump began saying that our biggest problem is the enemy from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, the National Guard, and if really necessary, by the military. And he later added that he was referring to Democrats like Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, and even recently referred to Kamala Harris several times as a radical left lunatic. His supporters often dismiss comments like this by saying, "That's just Trump being Trump." And they're right. And that is precisely what we're worried about. Trump being Trump. Trump being Trump is not an excuse. Trump being Trump is the problem. As members of a liberal religion that has a long history of liberal activism, we have sound reason to be worried about mass deportations, worried about health care, worried about Ukrainians and Palestinians, worried about skyrocketing inflation, and worried about the continuation of our constitutional democracy, among other concerns. And this leads back to the question of how so many Americans could have voted for him. Hearing the same things that we have heard and knowing the same things that we know about him. In only just a few days, I've heard several potential explanations. One is that the U.S. is a racist and misogynistic country that isn't ready for a female president, let alone one who is a woman of color. And perhaps, for some, this is true, but I don't believe that it's true of most Americans today on the left or the right. It's true that a majority of Harris voters were female and a majority of Trump's voters were male. Still, 44% of Trump's voters were women, including 7% of black women and 37% of Hispanic women. Meanwhile, 44% of Harris voters were male. That's close to half. There may be misogynists and racists among Trump's voters, but these statistics do not support claiming that this is the reason for his victory. Another possibility is that economically disenfranchised white males are now poorer than they've ever been. This possibility is substantiated by a recent New York Times article explaining that during the past 40 years, white working class males, defined as men without college degrees, have seen their incomes drop faster and more steeply than any other demographic, even as government programs and resources are going to uplift others. This downturn is mostly because blue-collar production and manufacturing jobs that once earned a respectable income that a family could be raised on have declined in number and significance compared to other lines of work. So can there be any wonder such workers who are simultaneously being blamed for all the evils that have ever happened by some on the left, wonder that they might respond to a message like, "Let's make America great again," coming from the right? It's not because they are racist or misogynist, but because they are financially desperate enough to grasp at any straw, any point of hope within reach. Some Democrats have also taken to blaming other Democrats for the loss, including blaming Joe Biden for not having gotten out of the race earlier, or Kamala Harris for not focusing on the right issues or the right demographics. There may be some truth here. In retrospect, we can always see things we could have done differently, but I don't think it's reasonable to blame our Democratic leaders, who are just as astonished by Trump's resounding win as anyone else. He is a force and phenomenon that so far defies explanation. No matter what missed opportunities may have given Harris more of a lead, the blame for Trump's success, along with the responsibility for his failures and whatever is to come next, is on those who voted for him, despite knowing all the same things that those of us know who did not. As a student of history and social psychology, I think rather than focusing on the particulars of this election, we should take a bird's eye view of the circumstances that always give rise to authoritarian leaders who play upon our fears, especially by creating an evil other to blame for all of our woes. Going all the way back to 64 CE, for example, to deflect blame on himself or from himself, Emperor Nero blamed the great fires of Rome on the Christians, saying that they wanted to destroy the world, which led to their persecution and actually to the practice of execution by burning people alive. As our Unitarian founder Michael Servetus eventually was in the 16th century. Hitler, as we all know, scapegoated the Jews for all of Germany's problems. And now Trump is blaming immigrants who are rapists, criminals, taking black jobs, along with us radical left lunatics. As a student also of social psychologist Erich Fromm, who left Germany prior to the Holocaust in opposition to Nazism, I would as briefly as possible say that the rise of authoritarianism societies stems from individuals who are feeling powerless, isolated, and fear in the face of rapid change and instability, something that describes our world today. And to escape this existential anxiety, people often seek security in submission to authority and conformity, sacrificing their freedom and reason for a sense of belonging and order. Which is why Karen's advice was so good from the book on tyranny. Don't obey. Don't give up your sense of reason. Don't allow yourself to be absorbed into the soul of a sadist, incapable of thinking for yourself. Because that's how it works. That's how authoritarians work. That's how Fromm talked about our this tension between freedom and belonging that all humans experience under any circumstances, and the wrong way to deal with it is through the sadomasochistic relationship, right? So that you're able to. The problem is how do I truly be free and individual and belong, right? And how do I be myself in a community without being rejected for not going along with the crowd? That's the tension. And so the sadomasochistic relationship is the sadist will say, well, I will maintain my individuality by absorbing and create community by absorbing the wills of others. That way I'm close to others, but I'm still an autonomous individual. And the masochist does the opposite. Says, I will become close to somebody by giving away my sense of self. And that way I'll be connected as an individual. That's a very sick way to deal with it, rather than to do the dance. I won't go into the dance. It's another subject. But this to me explains the rise of Donald Trump today and is how we should understand the time that we're living in. As a historical moment that must be understood from a historical perspective so that we can navigate through it without repeating the worst mistakes of the past. Rather than paying attention to this particular election and this particular authoritarian, we need to look at the bigger picture. And as catastrophic as this sounds, I do not want to catastrophize the situation and do not believe, dire as it is, that it is dire as it seems. If the pattern remains the same, in 2 years, Trump will have proven disappointing enough to voters that they will turn out to elect a Democratic-run Congress and perhaps even a Senate, which will keep Trump at bay for the remaining 2 years of his presidency. A Democrat will be elected after that. Then in 2 more years, one or both houses will regain a Republican majority, and so the pattern continues. So let's hope that our democracy holds for 2 years, just long enough to reestablish the ineffective gridlock government that we're all used to. And this leads us to the most pressing question of the day. What do we do now? Especially as religious liberals and social progressives. Firstly, I advise again that we do not catastrophize the situation unless or until there is an obvious catastrophe visible on the horizon. Let's not panic, even as we take serious matters seriously. Secondly, make good use of the stamina and the grit that we have had to build for the past decade, especially since after the shock of 2016. You know that you already have the strength and fortitude to get through this because you have already done so. Thirdly, don't become callous. Don't give up. Keep caring. This requires emotional intelligence. Be aware of your negative feelings, sadness and anger and fear and depression and so forth, so that they will assist you, not control you. And channel the energy of your feelings in positive directions. And we do this, we channel our negative emotions in positive directions through love. That sounds corny. I don't even like to use that word usually. But for me, love very specifically is not an emotion. It is a way of acting and behaving in the world that always considers the welfare and dignity of others. That's what love is. Wanting others to be well and to be able to fulfill their full potential. That's what love is. And we love when we help facilitate that. So, and we do that no matter what emotions we're having. We love through our anger, and we love through our passions, and all of those things. So when channeled through love, for example, our rage becomes courage. Right? That's the word, heart. The rage of the heart, core, rage. When our anger is expressed through love, it becomes courage, heart rage. And the passion in the same way, right? If we just let our passions run amok, people can get hurt. They get in the way. But if we express our passion through love, it becomes compassion. A passion that cares for the welfare and well-being of others, including the people we disagree with, which today almost synonymously means our enemies. It's not. We've got to get over that. We can disagree with people and not be enemies. And depression, which is particularly difficult, is anger that is turned inward because we feel powerless to control a situation, to control circumstances, to control others. And it makes us just want to give up and do nothing. That's what depression is, the feeling of I don't have the desire to do anything. And I say listen to that feeling and transform it into love and compassion for yourself. Listen to that voice when it comes and says, I'm tired. I need a break. I need a winter. I need a Sabbath. I need to rest. Give yourself permission to rest and to let go and to enjoy what is good and enjoyable in your life and to re-energize. Nowadays we treat depression like it's an illness. We want to give people drugs, medications to help them get over being depressed. Sometimes it's a calling that we need to take a break. Give yourself permission to do that. Fourthly, be stoic. Stoicism is the philosophy that reminds us, as Epictetus said hundreds of years ago, some things are in our power and some things are not in our power. Pretty simple statement, but this understanding the difference is the beginning of wisdom. We can't change the outcome of the election no matter how much we lament or want to. But we can change our perspective, change the way we address the issues. Those are within our power. And so the idea is to concentrate on the things we can change, the things we do have power over, and to stop worrying about the things that we cannot. And if you think about it, it's usually the opposite. What do we worry about? We worry about the things we have no power over. We worry about the things we can't change. doesn't do us any good, but just creates an anxious life. Stoicism is also based on what we call virtue ethics. In 300 BC, its founder, Zeno of Citium, Cyprus, taught that virtue is the greatest good because it is the only thing that is useful in all circumstances. All else is indifferent, meaning anything else doesn't matter. By virtue, Zeno meant that upholding the moral principles that we hold most important, which for him were wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation. And those are pretty good. But the virtues that define us as liberals today are human dignity, individual freedom, reason, and tolerance. Those are the values we believe that will help us create a good and peaceful world in which humanity prospers and individuals unfold. And the reason they are considered useful in all circumstances is because they should guide our behavior no matter what our circumstances are or their consequences to our lives. Right? When we get to that point, like we're here today, where we're confused and it's chaotic and we don't know what the future is going to hold and we don't know what direction to take, we do because we have a map. It's our virtues. Those guide us. What can I do to help promote human welfare and individual dignity? What can I do to help preserve freedom and reason and tolerance? That's our job now. If by upholding them we benefit, wonderful. And if by upholding them we suffer, so be it. That's why all else is indifferent. Because we don't uphold these virtues and values because of how they benefit our lives, but because of how they benefit the world. Whether doing so is pleasant or not. Fifthly, I believe we must practice and demonstrate tolerance, that virtue above all. It is the principle that our world needs to value most right now, so that we stop making enemies of everyone we disagree with and become more open to entertaining new ideas in other ways. We become open, less fearful of stepping out of our echo chambers and realize we're not going to get crushed and hurt and harmed if we do. Tolerance is already a universal human value, as proven by there being some version of the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, or as it's most often stated, don't do unto others what you would not want done to yourself, right? Don't bomb other neighborhoods. Don't indiscriminately kill innocent people. You wouldn't want that done to you, would you? Of course not. So we need only appeal to the better angel. See, when you have an authoritarian appealing to the worst demons through fear and enemizing others, creating an enemy for us to blame our troubles on, then the better angels of our nature are subdued beneath that. But those better angels are there, as the universal golden rule proves. So we just need to appeal to the better angels of our nature. Let go of the fear. In fact, have you ever noticed that's what the angels say when they meet somebody in the scriptures, in the biblical scriptures? That's how you know it's an angel. First thing they say is, be not afraid. Be not afraid. Fear not. That's how you know it's a worthy message, a message worth listening to. So we remind them of what they already know is true. We call to their higher nature. But tolerance does not mean, and this is an important point, as some now think, because it's gotten twisted, sadly by people on the left, that we should not disagree with others or say things that others might disagree with. That is called cowardice. On the contrary, tolerance means that we can say things that others disagree with, and that without fear of retribution, and that they can say things that we disagree with. That's what tolerance means. There is a world of ideas that we must allow to be expressed. And if we're smart, we might even entertain their value. Instead of doing what we're all doing now, trying to force one idea onto everybody as if somehow that's possible in a world of billions of people, and that's what's going to save us. We'll just silence anybody who disagrees, and we'll become a world where 8 billion people all think the same way, like me. It's not going to happen, and there'll be conflict and authoritarianism and all that kind of stuff until tolerance becomes the great virtue of humanity. Sixthly, remember that we need not be pawns of history, but we can seize upon this moment to be its movers. If these are the times that try our souls, then like the great figures of the past, let us not shrink from our service to our country or to our world or to humanity. Let us not be victims of our circumstances, but those who rise to the occasion. We are not beaten, we are not whipped. We are more determined than ever to preserve the freedoms and ideals that this country and our liberal religion are both founded upon. Let us counter authority with autonomy. Let us meet fascism with independence. Let us confront ignorance with reason and denial with truth. Let us face conformity with authenticity, submission with defiance, fear with courage, and let us lift our heaviest burdens together with the strength that we give each other. There is a saying that it is better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. And I say that the smallest of candles shines brightest only in the darkest of hours. Dark as it may now seem, this is not our time to shrink. It is our time to shine. Thank you.
Please stand and join us in singing number 301, Touch the Earth, Reach the Sky.
Touch the
us depart today with American historian John Meacham's reflections on this presidential election. History cannot comfort us in this hour, but it can inspire us. To my Republican friends, my plea is straightforward. From Gettysburg to Omaha Beach to Selma, Alabama, Americans have fought and bled and died so that we, the people, could seek to perfect our union, not so that an authoritarian showman bully could turn our national project into his own fief. Amen, blessed be, salam alaikum, and shalom.
following week is three things. Yeah. Oh, yes. Yeah. I'll have to take a look at that or something. Yeah. I'll help you put this on. Yeah, let's take care of that. It takes you a little while. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I'm I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be part of this. I came to a couple services the past couple weeks, but I actually grew up. Some of my friends as a kid came here, so I have like I'm familiar with everything. But hey, I usually am the scary one, so.